Hi guys, today we're going to be talking about consciousness. So because it's such a buzzword and there are many ways of going about describing what consciousness is, we're going to start with a basic definition. The Latin word for con means with, the Latin word for scio means to know. When you look at the word together, it means with knowing. Okay, so that's a basic definition of the word, but if you begin to contemplate consciousness a little bit more, whether you're just thinking about it or exploring your own consciousness, you'll soon start to realize that you are a fundamental part of the equation. So it's a pretty accepted thought that you and the world are separate, and it turns out that the opposite is really true. This is something that modern science is constantly rediscovering, and the simple version is you and your world are directly connected. This isn't anything new. In Hermeticism, it's known as mentalism. It's the first law that says that all is mental. Most of us think that life just happens and we're just kind of observers going along for the ride. And while that is partially true, the opposite is also true. So while we do have a very passive role in life, we also have a very active participating role in life in our world. And it doesn't matter if you're blind or dumb or deaf or stupid or smart or enlightened or intelligent or a tree or a rock for that matter. All experiences mentally, and we're slowly starting to move away from the idea of thinking that that means the brain. The brain is a very powerful tool, a very useful calculator, computer, but it is as much the mind as your toe or the air you're breathing. Hermeticism ultimately calls this the all. It says that all is mind, all is mental, all is consciousness in one form or another. So let's look at a very common physics thought experiment called Schrodinger's cat. If you don't know what that is, it's basically a thought experiment in which there's a cat in a box. There's a poison capsule inside the box with the cat, and there is a trigger set to either set this vial off and release the poison or not. And it poses the question, is the cat in the box alive or dead? And the answer to the question is a lot more complicated than appears on the surface. The cat is in a state that physics calls superposition, and this means that until we open the box and see what the cat is, if he's alive or dead, the cat is actually alive and dead, both and neither. So until this equation collapses and the box is opened and the cat is revealed to be one or the other, it actually is all of them. And this is a physical description of how the universe actually works. So the way we understand this is that all probabilities exist in a waveform probability, and they all exist until the moment that they're actually observed. So what this means is that everything is and isn't until you actually observe it or measure it or it becomes quantifiable in some way. Another way of posing this same idea is if a tree falls in the woods and no one is there to hear it, does the tree actually fall? This is a really flawed thought experiment, but the idea behind it is that if no one observed the tree, then did the tree fall? And the simple answer is no, but it's also the wrong answer. The situation is actually a lot more complex because the tree is aware of its falling, the plants and animals around the tree are aware of its falling, the air is aware that it's falling. Because consciousness pervades everything, all is aware. Now, in my video talking about reality, we discuss how anything that you experience is real. So if you didn't see the tree fall, then did it fall? And no, for you it didn't fall. In your reality, no, the tree didn't fall unless you were there to experience it. But for you right now, China isn't real. The future isn't real, unless in some way you are observing those things. Okay, so all that is real for you at any moment is what you're experiencing at any given moment. And again, these are all simplified ways of looking at a very complex universe. These are called paradoxes, and one way that we can reconcile them is when we look at this Buddhist philosophy that understands that I am you and you are me. Now, of course, on the surface, this just sounds like philosophical mumbo-jumbo, but if we take some time and look at it, we can start to understand it a little bit more. I personally had an experience with this during meditating one time, and I became very aware of myself and my reality and saw how I am very much connected to my reality. And I began to realize that without me, there is no reality. And both things are true. Because reality exists, I exist, and because I exist, reality exists. I started to see that without there being a reality to be observed, without there being anything, then I am nothing. And so if there is nothing and I'm nothing, then there's nothing. And so the opposite was also true. Now, until you begin to start to understand this for yourself, it really does just sound like words, but you'll eventually begin to see that without the stool there, without the window, without the tree, without the animals, without this person and that person and this thing, without those things there, I'm not here. Nothing is without you, and without you, there isn't anything. With that in mind, you may begin to start to see how we are all truly connected and entwined and entangled, and how nothing can exist without everything existing. And because anything exists, all things exist. So that may be a little difficult to hold on to, but give it some time and it may sink in a little bit more. But eventually, hopefully, the idea is that we'll realize that this is very fundamental to what the universe is and how it works. Now, in psychology, we study the mind, and it's basically a science that bridges the gap between brain, mind, and body, and it deals with thoughts a lot. And by attempting to manage our thoughts, then we can start to have an effect on our reality. And this is kind of at the core of psychology, but it acknowledges how bad experiences can generate bad thoughts, and good experiences can generate good thoughts. And it also sees that the reverse is true. So if you have a negative thought, then it can create a negative reality. If you have a good thought, then it can create a positive reality. The shorthand being evil begets evil, good begets good. We can all relate to this in any number of experiences. If you went to a place when you were young and you had an amazing time, anytime you're reminded of that in whatever way, you feel good. If you have a negative association with something, then you will remember it that way, and you'll go on experiencing it that way until you start to change it on your own. And we've talked about this, how you can have a negative experience and your mind likes to hold on to that so that it can learn from it and not have to go through that again. But this can also be self-defeating a lot of the time. And if we're not paying attention, then we can get stuck in this horrible loop of negative thoughts, negative experiences, and it just keeps on going until we get in there and change it. Looking closer at this, you might start to see how you can relate to this personally, where in your life you may have been going through an experience and you said something negative and then something negative happened. Simple examples like, oh, I'm playing a video game and I'm about to die in the video game, and then you die. Or you're walking on a ledge, I'm going to fall, and you fall. Or I'm going to bomb this test, and then you bomb it. And if you really pay attention, you'll be surprised how much this phenomena happens. You have a thought, and then you say it, and then it becomes reality. Believe it or not, everything follows this process. If you look at anything that you know in the universe, whether it's a building or a car, a law, an app, the earth, you, the universe, everything is at first created mentally, consciously. And if you master this tool, then you'll have a very powerful influence on how you affect your reality. There are several other practical examples that we see this in. The double slit experiment in physics is another one. The placebo effect is another one that we're going to go into great detail in other videos. But coming back to psychology, let's say that you went through any type of trauma, whether it's an illness, someone close to you dying, breakup, being laid off your job, whatever unfortunate circumstance it is. In psychology, it begins in your mind. You begin by changing the way that you think about these things, and then you change the way you speak about them, and then your actions begin to reflect that. And in time, you heal through your trauma or whatever it is that you're going through, or at least to a better extent than you were before. If you look at the Bible or any other sacred texts or ancient documents, including the theory of the Big Bang, in the beginning was nothing, and then God spoke, and then the universe came into existence. Alan Watts has a good video talking about this, just how we discuss a lot of these different ideas on this channel. He talks about how all parts of reality are just ideas. Doesn't matter what time or dimension or physical or emotional or thought, mental, these are all just concepts. But the true nature of reality is, and then he rings a bell, okay? And the idea there is that it's a frequency, it's a vibration. So even the creation of the universe follows this process, that it began as a vibration. And in physics we understand this, that all is vibrating, and the only difference between any two things is the frequency at which they're vibrating. Buddha also really got this, and he taught it as right thoughts, right speech, and right action. It's a little bit more complex if you look into it, but the concept is the same. So the more you become aware of your thoughts, then you can see how that becomes the things that you speak, and those become your reality. And this is all vibration. It's a thought form vibration, audible sound vibration, and then it is a observable physical vibration. And obviously this applies to good or bad or anything in between. And what we're focusing on right now is how we all tend to fall into this trap of negative thinking. And this can cause this cascade of problems where our thoughts become bad words, and then we are now living in this hell of our own making. And this is why it's so important to pay attention to your thoughts and your words and your actions, so that when you do fall into these traps, that you can quickly nip them in the bud and change it so you can move things in the right direction. And we'll continue to talk about how we fall into these self-defeating thought patterns. And they're usually very subconscious and very passive, and we're hardly aware of them. They can be very contented mindsets, very lazy, very easy. We usually like to take the easy way. Lazy, neglectful. These are a lot more common. A lot of us like to think, oh, well, I'm not a bad person, or I'm not evil, I'm not creating bad. But these more simple, subtle, passive ones can be just as destructive for us personally. And it's just about paying attention. If you wake up in the morning and say, oh, I don't want to go to work today. Well, there you go. You had that thought, then you said it, and you're probably not going to have the best day at work now because of it. or you say, oh, this person sucks, or this thing is stupid, you'd be amazed how often you'll see this playing out. And for all of you wanting to play devil's advocate, keep in mind that these are simplified ideas. You have to respect and acknowledge that the universe is extraordinarily complex. And you really can throw any argument you want at this, and eventually you'll see that it is reconciled by these truths. But the universe is very complex. You are very complex. Our situations, our lives, our thoughts, all these things that we experience are complex, but we can use these simple tools to help look at them and break them down and make them more manageable. So what this breaks down to is, yes, life has its challenges and it can be difficult, and we can have these difficult situations and we can see ourselves as the victim. And is that true? Yes, it's true. But if you're the victim, then does that also mean that you're empowered? Yes, it does. So by becoming more consciously aware, you can choose to be empowered. Think, am I going to be ruled by my environment, or am I going to be a ruler? Am I going to be a slave or a master? Am I going to have the wrong thoughts or the right thoughts? Am I going to generate bad or good in my world? Like I've said, on this channel, we're going to look at a lot of different scientific, philosophical, religious, and so many different topics and ideas and different ways of looking at them. And the point is that it's all the same truth. All these are a pursuit for truth, and at the end of the day, it's the same truth. You can't go on any one path and find a different truth. We're all going to go to the same truth. It's not about pointing fingers and choosing sides. It's about finding your way to the truth. And this is one very true and real aspect of what reality is and how this universe works. We all exist in this reality, and we're all subject to its laws. There's no escaping it. So we can either learn from it and move forward, or we can resist it and stay in ignorance and have life keep on showing us these things until we start to get it. So to wrap up, all is mind. That's what this is. Everything is mental. And if mind is the what, then consciousness would be the how. How reality is being created consciously every moment. So we've discussed how reality is basically anything that you've experienced, and now we've covered how consciously we can interact with this reality to create the effect that we want in our universe. So get into your mind and take control of your thoughts, and see how your thoughts have an impact on the words you speak, and see how those create your actions. And be honest with yourself and realize how much you misstep. You'll see the more you pay attention, the more you'll start to realize how much you are misstepping and falling out. And it's not about judging yourself or being hard on yourself. It's just about being honest, so that when you are messing up, you can turn that around and start to move in the right direction. Notice when you're out of harmony so you can fix it and start to move yourself into a place of peace and harmony. That's it for this video about consciousness. Thank you for watching, guys. Again, this is just a quick look at a much bigger idea. If you guys want to catch more, I upload every Wednesday. Feel free to subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one.